Let me quickly catch you up on a series of events that have transpired over the last few weeks that led me to making this video today. So some of you may be familiar with this story, but about 3 weeks ago, the issue with Samantha Fulnecki blew up, who was an Oklahoma student who cited the Bible as a source for her reaction paper on an article about the societal expectations of gender. Now, we can house that as a separate issue. Many people have already covered it, and I think they've done a great job, and I'm going to give you a very high-level summary here in just a second. But her professor gave her a 0 on that paper and is now facing discipline. Then you have states like Florida that are reacting politically, saying, hey, we need new laws here. The problem is, this bill that I'm going to share with you today and cover with you today, I don't think protects education. In fact, I think it breaks it further. The way that I am reading this, it does not seem to be about academic freedom. It does not seem to be upholding the First Amendment, but quite literally doing the opposite. It seems to be shielding ideology from criticism and forcing schools to pretend that faith-based claims are the same as scholarship. So the bill is called the Florida Student and School Personnel First Amendment and Religious Liberties Act. This is being introduced by Senator Clay Yarborough. He might sound familiar to you. He's been on the scene since 2010 when he declared that gays, Muslims, and atheists should not be permitted to hold public office, otherwise God will smite the country. Since then, it has just been a series of trying to ban things that seem harmful to him based off of his Christian views. Of course, lots of things around the LGBTQ community and the good old Christian pastime of trying to ban books. Before diving into this newest bill and what I think it's saying and the harms that I think are associated with it, I again wanted to give you that high-level context for what I think became the emotional proof text needed to try to move this kind of thing forward. The student submits the paper utilizing the Bible as the primary source. From what I understand, it is not even really citing the Bible. It's a whole nother question if the Bible should be considered as a source, but it seemed to be just, I believe X, and the Bible says that's so, which to this professor failed the criteria that they had clearly set out about the assignment. Things like citing academic resources, engaging with scholarship, and showing a critical analysis. Now, if it should have been an actual 0, I think is debatable. And so, yeah, sure, let's look into this in terms of, is the professor also having a bias? Christians are not the only ones that can fall prey to this. I don't have enough facts to really say anything more, though. My focus today is on the new bill. But of course, when this person didn't receive the excellent grade that they thought they should have, they cried discrimination, turning to Turning Point USA as an organization to help flood this narrative. Then the culture war side of this takes prominence over any academic evaluation, and thus the professor becomes the villain, the student becomes just so innocent, and the grade becomes proof of religious discrimination. Reframing academic standards as anti-Christian bias is an incredibly dangerous and slippery slope to go down. It sets the stage for legislation that is doing what this first bill is trying to propose, which is punishing educators for doing their jobs. And unfortunately, what I'm seeing some of the arguments online to be about this Florida bill is that it is just trying to protect everyone here. That it's really here to clarify the standards, not to blow them up. That this will work in everyone's favor, that everyone has a deeply held belief that might need protected. Except when you consider the people putting this forward, the agendas they have so clearly shown themselves to have, I don't think that we would expect some student making a case from the Quran to be equally accepted or valid. Not that it should be. Again, everything should be held up to an academic standard, to real scholarship, not to your favorite holy book that tells you the thing you already agree with. I think that's the necessary context for this bill. Let me be clear, though, about what this bill is and isn't doing, isn't saying. Here's what it claims to do. This is the supporting from the framers. It's simply here to protect students. We wouldn't want anyone being penalized for their religious viewpoints. We want to ensure free expression in a student's coursework, and we want to stop ideological discrimination by educators. But a more plain reading of this bill might suggest that it prohibits grading penalties based on not just religious, but religious, political, and ideological viewpoints within the assignments. It requires instructors to separate academic evaluation from viewpoint content, even when that viewpoint is replacing evidence. This is where things are starting to get additionally slippery, and it creates legal exposure for the schools and the instructors who are failing students that can now claim viewpoint discrimination. Again, religious discrimination, political discrimination, ideological discrimination. Now, by the wording, it would seem that that's for any belief system, not just religious belief and not just Christian belief. So some that are trying to say this bill is all about the Bible, I think are wrong, but it is all about belief. It's a belief shield. And you know what? Again, this might come as a shock to many people. I am not against people having personal beliefs, but they should be just that. Personal. And that goes for all sides, because there are non-religious people, atheists, who lack a belief in a particular God that still have a belief about something else that is unfair or lacking evidence or harmful. So this isn't me saying, hey, anyone that wants to protect people's beliefs is automatically bad. No, I think beliefs should be protected. I don't think they should get special treatment, and I definitely don't think that they should start to replace evidence, and I definitely don't think that the people trying to hold that academic rigor should start being punished. I hope you can see the nuance within this position. I don't think what I'm saying here is crazy, but I do want to make sure I'm understanding the bill correctly. So if I'm saying anything that is fundamentally incorrect according to the actual verbiage of the bill, please let me know. Part of my problem is not even necessarily the bill itself, though yes, there are issues there. It's the lie, the narrative behind the bill. Florida already has protections. Students are already allowed to express religious belief. The way that these right-wing Christian content creators are spinning this, are framing this, is like this thing is lacking, and that all these students, anyone that has belief, is an impossibility to graduate or get a fair grade at a secular university. This is simply not the case. Teachers are already prohibited from grading based on belief alone. What this is trying to fix, because those first two things don't need fixing, is the ability to override academic standards for preference toward belief, as well as the power to punish educators who insist on really stupid things like, I don't know, evidence, methodology, disciplinary norms, accurate grading. We already had, you can express your beliefs, but this law is seeming to say, and now we want those beliefs that were already protected to be treated as academically valid. No, you don't get to do that. Academic freedom doesn't mean anything goes. And of course, they wouldn't want it to mean that if it's for the shoe on any other foot. These people that are fighting for religious freedom will not be fighting for the religious freedom of the Hindu or the Muslim or even the Mormon. I want to take a minute to try to talk about why specifically this is harmful or has the potential to be harmful. And I came up with 4 issues for this. First is that it simply collapses the differences between belief and scholarship. Most faith claims at large in the abstract are not falsifiable, but academic claims must be. This bill would force educators to act like that's not the case, like there's not a delta so humongous there. This point alone creates enough tension that it should show just how obviously incorrect this line of thinking is. 2, it weaponizes victimhood. Now, any failed paper can become a discrimination claim. And again, I am not claiming that there have never been failed papers because of discrimination, going any way from any kind of group to the other. I'm sure that there has been. I'm not saying there should be no reform in the universities. I'm not saying everything is perfect. I'm saying what is being proposed is not a fix and will only further the issues. Samantha's paper being the perfect example. I mentioned earlier I didn't think it should be a 0, but I don't think it should have been a passing grade either when you just compare it to the criteria. So did the teacher overreach? I don't know. Maybe. But should this student be getting to claim discrimination to this degree where the bad grade has been erased and the teacher is now on disciplinary leave? No, she didn't do what the paper required of her. And when that did not work out for her, instead of being held to a higher standard and taught how to properly succeed, she threw her hands in the air and said, my laziness is actually me being religiously discriminated against. That's an abuse. That is failing her for the future. I've kind of already veered into number 3. It's going to affect education. Teachers are now going to be grading defensively. Departments are going to be lowering expectations to avoid lawsuits. The controversial subjects which should be explored and exposed during this time at university or college are now legal minefields that will most likely just get more and more avoided, and when talked about, discussed, or looking for academic standards on, will be severely lessened in what is expected or required. Again, you don't have to agree with me at large about this channel or this God, but when these semi-politicized issues crop up that are obviously religiously adjacent, I just don't understand the appeal to, well, it's my side, therefore it's right. Can Christians really not critically think and zoom out just a little bit to see that they would not like a student to write a paper on war ethics citing the Quran with an expectation that that equals scholarly work and deserves a good grade against a rubric that clearly was not followed? By the way, it doesn't have to be from another religion for this to go horribly sideways. What happens when a medical student writes a paper against germ theory, or doctors needing to wash their hands before surgery, citing good biblical evidence that illness is actually nothing more than unclean spirits, and thus part of their medical education should actually be on exorcism? Do you want your future doctors to be able to write papers like that don't receive the obvious grade they deserve? And that's how I was going to kind of end, was the example I already gave about Jesus's teaching on where illness actually stems from and how to cure it. But there's 1,000 other examples that we don't want students to start to go after, utilizing the Bible itself if we're going to start counting that as equally weighted evidence. Because by citing the Bible, I can go back to school and make a biblical case that slavery is morally justified. I can write a paper on divinely mandated genocide. I wonder how the female politicians involved in this are going to feel when I can write an academically equal paper on the fact that women should not be in leadership positions. Again, using the Bible as my evidence. Funny enough, I could use the Bible to write about why evidence is inferior to faith. I could endorse all kinds of horrific things like killing gay people, as long as I cite Leviticus and Romans after this bill passes. I am all for protecting students, and I am all for protecting beliefs, and I am all for recognizing that people in power also have biases and might be exposing and using those biases in harmful ways to the educational system and to students. But I don't believe that this bill is protecting students or actually effectively going after biased educators. Let's have university reform. Let's just do so correctly. I don't want to live in a society where the educational system is simply built by law to affirm whatever someone already believes. That's fine if it ends up being right. I just want an education system that shows how we got there, that exists to test those claims and only pass them if they carry actual evidential weight. And that evidence, again, not being someone's favorite political speaker or philosophical guru or favorite ancient scripture. So I don't think that this is an overreaction to speaking about it. I don't think that other people who are very nervous about this are overreacting either. I think the First Amendment tensions are very real. I know that similar laws have been struck down and for good constitutional reasoning. I know that many educators and civil liberty groups are highly concerned about this also. And so wherever you fall, I don't think you should be for this either. If you are a parent, surely this cannot be the kind of education you want for your child. If you are a student yourself, I'm sure you don't want your potential future education watered down out of fear about how the religious will weaponize their pseudo-hypothetical religious discrimination against the universities and the coursework itself. If you're a real educator who wants people to learn how to learn, then this cannot be the way. Let me know what you think I got wrong about this. This is still a developing subject and still something I'm always looking to learn more about and make sure that I am thinking as correctly and unbiased myself as possible. I hope that everyone has a wonderful New Year's Eve. I will see you Thursday with a new comment deep dive, and until then, keep thinking. I wanted to personally thank my top tiers of support: my Iconoclast, Ann, Boris, Chris, Grant, GVI, Jimmy, Joe, Kitboga, yep, the Kitboga, Matthew, Perry, and Shawn. My Humanist heroes: Chris, Craig, James, Jared, and Christy. My Atheist advocates: Aquitar, Caleb, Dakota, Dan, Drew, Jeff, Jeffrey, Jeremy, Jugs, Julie, Malcolm, Paul, Sparky, and Thomas, as well as all of my secular scholar patrons. Would you consider joining these fine people?